was supposed to be high on Euphoria and dancing on a table singing Euphoria to the tune of Gloria. No one's going to be standing like high on cocaine, dancing on a table singing cocaine. So I was disgruntled and I complained about it. And somebody told Chuck I was complaining about it. And the message I got back was tell her to say the lines like I wrote them.
Did I say that?
Hey there, Beverly Hills 90210 fans. It's now time to dive deep into an episode-by-episode, character-by-character, song-by-song account of the making of your favorite zip code. With your host, Charles Rosen.
Did I say that?
Larry Mollin.
This heinous thing about the real person, and we're going, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferriero.
It was nice having Darren Star on that one time.
And representing the fans, Lilly Amarin.
Brian, I love you. I have dreamt about you.
Along with many special guests. And your questions. So sit back and relax because it's like totally time for the Beverly Hills 90210 show.
Okay, we are here. And we are back for another episode of the Beverly Hills 90210 show. And look who's with us, Rebecca Gayheart, Rebecca Dane. How are you? It's so good to see you.
Guys, I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh no. What had happened? What happened? Why don't you exit the room? We just, by the way, this was working just wonderfully just a second ago. Do you see where it's
it says at the bottom, leave studio.
Leave studio and come back right back to studio.
Leave studio. Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna write it down. Well, we're live on television.
Okay, we'll figure this out in a second. Hey, James Whitmore Jr. is here too. How are you, man? How's everything been? The director of this episode. How are things going with you, man?
Well, you know, living, working for a living, taking care of my grandkids. My old wife and I have been hanging around together for a long time. We had 5 months off to hang out together with each other and with our kids, and now we're back to work. Life, any better be a setup. Lucky life.
Very cool. Like everybody's sending Rebecca SOSs here.
Yeah, she gave them, hopefully. Okay. Oh, she left the studio. She did get it. Great.
Okay. Larry, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a very busy week. I have to tell everybody we've been really working hard prepping for the October 4th Super Show party, which is the actual premiere date of Beverly Hills 90210 in 1990, and there's just going to be a 3-hour live party extravaganza with everybody who's ever once worked on the show hopping in at one point and pre-records, and we just make. Can you hear us?
Now I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
We fixed it.
Yes, there we go. Yeah. So go ahead, Larry. You were saying it's.
No, I was talking about this party we're prepping for October 4th, which is the 30th anniversary date, and everyone's being invited. It's a big, it's a milestone. We've got critics, we've got all the different girlfriends of the different characters. We've got interesting fan segments. We're doing some pre-records and locations, and I don't know why we're doing this, but we're having a lot of fun just revisiting the work, which is pretty damn good, as we discovered.
Yes. And hey, we announced on Wednesday, joining us on that October 4th show will be Carol Potter and James Eckhouse. Jim and Cindy will be with us. And then I'm excited to announce a couple more. Christina Leese is coming back to the fold, and Mark Espinosa. So it's gonna be fun. And obviously we've got invites out to some people. I mean, I went to the Wayback Machine for a couple of these.
Yes, I know you did. I know
way back. Yeah. So anyway, Rebecca, how are you? It's good to have you.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I am well, considering everything that's going on in the world. Hanging in there.
Totally. Now, you probably, I'm sure all of you, when was the last time that you saw some of these episodes?
So I would, a very, very, very long time. It feels like a lifetime ago, and it was really fun to revisit them. My daughters wanted to watch. They're not quite old enough to watch, so I didn't let them. But it was hard to keep them away.
Yeah. Well, we have a little surprise here for the fans. Somebody is waiting in the wings to join us. I don't think we could have done this episode without him. But there we have Cliff Weissman.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Hey.
Hey.
He is with us as
Hi.
well. It's awesome.
He played Bruno, which was our Father Lawrence character. Like if you know,
I brought my tie. I don't know if you can see that. Every episode.
Yeah, wardrobe's still looking for that time.
Is that right?
We're actually still looking for wardrobe because she's supposed to join us and we haven't heard from her. So Molly Campbell, who made the dress and stuff, might join us as well. All right, Larry, let's get into this. Let's dive into this. Now, coming into season 6, there's a debacle. Is Luke Perry going to stay on with the show? Right? There's that. Now, how involved are you with something like that? Are you like, guys, you got to sign him? Or are you just like, well, if we do this happens. If we don't, like, where do you go as a writer?
I would say timeline-wise, we know we're going back in production in the middle of July, and which means we really have to start writing scripts by Memorial Day. So the beginning of May, we started hearing that Luke wasn't going to come back. No, we already had lost Chuck. Shannon had gone the year before, so now okay, and then he was going to do 10 episodes. So we got that message, 10 episodes, and it was an awesome responsibility. And so we tried to, basically a lot of the success of the show was we always would look back with what these characters, because they were real to us, what these characters, and we had inherited this great gift of the mystery of the death of Luke's father, which of course James Whitmore blew him up in a car in another episode, I think. So we and in the end of season 5, we had hung Luke out of the tram, for checking out what's going on, who's after, who did his father in, and trying to scare him off. And we said, okay, what if he didn't get scared off? What if he could get some real solid clue? And then we just started weaving this love story. And and we just got more and more into it. It was basically in the room where it happened was really Steve Wasserman, Jessica Klein, and myself. And we started weaving. We thought, you kind of always looking a little bit at Romeo and Juliet as the shorthand. And in the shorthand, Bruno was Father Lawrence, who was the go-between between the lovers. We always had that in the pocket. We were going to have some way to make this story work. And my background also was a lot of cop shows, like Jim's and a lot of action shows. So I kind of felt a little, I felt pretty good about we could make this work. And then we had the casting, which, we were so lucky. What can I say? I mean, our hearts were in our throats when we thought Rebecca was going to say yes. I mean, we were so excited because we just knew everyone would fall in love with her. And certainly Luke was going to find, Dylan McKay was going to fall in love with her. And that was the key thing, making this work. And then we were lucky because we had we cast Stanley Camel as the father.
Yes.
The other Tony. See, that was the other thing we played it with. We, late at night, we realized, we have Tony and Antonia, we could kind of, because we had to delay it 10 episodes. And she did, Rebecca did 8 episodes, I think. So we had to make that story go 8 episodes. And then, like I said, we had Stanley Camel, who comes in and is just so evil. He's just so bad. And watching this particular episode, there's such a scene where Bruno, you really see what he's like. He's so happy about these kids getting married. And he says to the hitman, "Isn't this great? The boss is turning around. He's going to give him a job." And like these, it's just played beautifully. I mean, look, I mean, so anyway, the storyline was the storyline. We kind of felt we had gold, but it was the casting. And then we had to get James Whitmore to direct it. And then we kind of felt, we'd give it our best shot. And it just, looking at it again, it's something I really feel proud of. And I should mention Steve Wasserman, our partner in crime, who penned the teleplay and also did a lot of the producing, I'm sure, with Jim on it, is no longer with us. Either is Stanley Camel in this, memorial of shows.
Now, I'm curious for Rebecca. How did you guys? How did you get into the mix of this?
I was still living in New York City, and I got a call from Larry Taub, who was my agent and who also happened to be Luke's agent. Oh. Yeah, and he said, "I want you to get on the phone with Luke, because we want you to go out to California and do this show, 90210. And obviously I knew what the show was. And I was like, wow, okay. I hadn't worked in California a lot. I was sort of an East Coast person. And, listen, after speaking with Luke, you can't say no to him.
Right.
I was so excited. I was like, yes.
That's awesome. So you didn't have to.
I never knew that part of it. That's great. I mean, that was thank you, Luke.
Yeah, but there was no audition process for you. Then you.
There was an offer.
No, it was wild because I don't know how much work I'd done before the show. but I certainly was not someone who got offered roles all the time. So
Are you kidding? You were the Noxema girl.
I was going to say she was, and that's what she was known as. And we had also cast a lot of models. We were comfortable with models. Mr. Spelling was comfortable with models. Oddly enough, and I should tell Rebecca this, one of the things that he was concerned about was the curly hair. He was like fixated on it. So
really?
a rich man would never have his daughter have curly hair. I mean, going like, what are you talking about? We didn't quite, I don't know. It's a generational thing, but it all works out.
Yes, definitely.
My hair scared everyone.
It was fabulous.
We loved your hair.
My hair was a lot, and it was scary for a lot of people. But I think for that time period, it was very in the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
So it worked, but I think also, I don't know. It all happened very fast. I was cast. I came out, and for me, it was a big deal to drive in California. And you guys were very kind and put me up at this great hotel. And I had this convertible car you had rented me. But the sad part about that was, because I was enjoying it all so much, that after I burnt my foot, remember that episode where
I do. I remember what a trooper you were. She finished the day.
And I wore a boot for many of the episodes. I couldn't drive after that. So
what is the story of burning your foot? What is that story of her burning her foot?
We were shooting in Point Magoo, and it was a beach scene, and it was like a 6 a.m. call time. And they had put my mark on, I guess it was a campfire that someone had just covered with a very small layer of sand. And my mark was right on the campfire. And so I was running down the beach to hit my mark, and I hit my mark, dug my foot into the campfire.
Oof.
Yeah.
Welcome to 90210.
She finished the day. Okay. Right. I remember us going, what a trooper this kid. I mean, we were felt so terrible. And obviously we were really mad that this would happen, that they didn't figure this out. But God bless them. It was, no, you were tough as nails. Well, she was from Hazard, Kentucky. We found out that day.
That's right. Yeah.
This girl's from Hazard, Kentucky. She's tough.
Did you know? Did you know, Rebecca, that this is Luke's last year, and this is a big deal for for you to be in this storyline with him? Were you aware of that at that time?
I mean, a little bit. I think look, I was excited about it, and it was going to be fun to be on the show. It was a little scary, first day of school on that show, because it was such a, close cast, and but I didn't know it was going to be such a big deal. I thought it was going to be one of those, you go, you guest star on a show, and then but it's funny because people think that I was on the show for much longer than I was. Because in reality, I think it was 8 or 9 episodes, and people, think I'm on the show for a year or 2 years. Right,
that's true.
So it's impactful.
I was just going to say it's an impactful period. Now, talk to me a little bit about the storyline, Larry, from this season of her coming in and whatnot, and some of the beats that because we do see her, I think in episode 3 of that season, right?
Yes, it must be a guy thing. She comes in that episode, number 3. And, there's a curious thing. I just, it's a side note here. I don't mean to, but I was confused because there were 2 episodes played on the same day, okay? The first 2 episodes of that season, Home is Where the Tart Is and Buffalo Girls, played 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock on Fox that week, because at 9 o'clock on CBS, Darren Starr's show was premiering. And Mr. Spelling was fixated on burning it. And so we had to hurry up another post on another show so we could run 2 and kind of burn it, and which he did. He successfully killed the show. It was called Central Park West.
Wow.
Okay. Anyway, within the beats of the story, we were going to have, Luke, make his entrance with the girl, but not really thinking about falling in love with her. He's using her basically to get to the father. And she starts getting involved with him, getting involved with the friends. And there's a wonderful dinner party scene I
Love
saw.
that.
Where it's just as great. And of course, Luke is Dylan's using it to kind of sneak into the father's office to get some, incriminating evidence. And I think, Bruno is also up there. I don't know if you got to see that, Cliff, but yeah, there's some great stuff building up the relationships. And it all just kept working on. And we played some heavy stuff too, with the guys with guns at each other under the table and a dinner scene. We kind of pulled out some of the stuff and really built it up. And then we knew we were going to be going to this episode, which is going to be Goodbye, Luke. And we just wanted to break heart. And I just, and luckily Jim had the time to do this episode, because we needed someone like him to pull this off. I mean, there was rain, there was a party. We have strippers, male strippers. I mean, there's so much going on here. Again, as Jim knows, we did these in 7 out of 10 days. What do you shoot now, Jim? How many days do you shoot an hour?
Well, at least you do 8 and probably 2 or 3 second unit days now.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it's a different world.
Different world. He had to shoot like 8 pages a day. It was like.
And for Rebecca, like walking through these before we get to this episode, walking through this storyline with Luke and whatnot, and entering the cast and all that, what is some of that stuff like for you?
I was very intimidated by it all and by everyone, but I also, really was kind of naive about it all. So that worked to my advantage. I just sort of came and tried to do my job. I was very excited about it. And I really remember, Cliff, we had such a nice time shooting together, and you were one of my favorite parts of that storyline.
It comes through.
But it was definitely, intimidating to have scenes with Jenny and Tori, and to meet them, and then the next second be in a scene with them.
Yeah,
they were all sort of very well known from the show, and then Jason, and it was just trying to find my footing, trying to find my place. And I have to say, Luke played a really big part in making me comfortable on set. Everyone did. The crew was also incredibly kind to me, and they were looking out for me, because not everyone was happy I was there.
Yeah.
There was definitely some
Hollywood
dynamics on the set. Yeah. But everyone, I felt very comfortable because there was people watching out for me. And like I said, I think, Cliff, you probably felt similar in
well, we used to chat, actually. We used to talk a little bit about feeling outside.
Yeah.
Initially.
It was the 6th season there, and people were leaving. Luke's leaving. Everyone who's staying is saying, "Why am I staying?" I mean, it was starting to, there was a, there's a rhythm that happens in a long-running show, and this was one of those, down rhythms, but the storylines were buoying everybody up. I mean, because they were excited.
Yeah. And Cliff, for you, how did you?
I think their story. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rebecca. Go ahead. Oh, I was going to ask Cliff how he.
I was just going to say
Go ahead, Rebecca. I'm sorry.
No, I was only going to add that I felt like the storyline, though, that you guys created, it was magical in a way. It all happened sort of quickly, but it was played so well, and you guys really, did such a nice job with it that it was just so much fun. It was short and sweet, but it was so much fun, and it was really impactful.
Awesome. So for Cliff, how did you walk into this? Did you audition for the part of Bruno?
I auditioned. I was still relatively new to LA, and I had just switched representation, and it was my first audition. And I had a preliminary audition. I had a second callback, and then the third callback, it was just me and someone else. And I was supposed to go into the room first, and the other actor was invited in. And when he came out of the room, I had noticed that he had sort of flop sweat. And I thought to myself, I could possibly get this.
It's a tell.
And so I did. And I auditioned for it. And we did several scenes from several episodes when I auditioned for the final time.
And what do you think of the scripts when you're getting them in the character of Bruno? What did you think of the part?
Well, I love Bruno because, oftentimes I play tough guys, and this was really a guy with a heart of gold. And so ultimately, you start out and he's sort of brutish and he's, sort of antagonistic. And then I had some wonderful scenes, particularly with Rebecca, where I got to show my sense of humor and I got to do some lighthearted stuff. We did a Halloween episode where I was holding a cat, and that was my tribute to Brando. So it was a great character, really great character. So I was thrilled.
So when we get into this episode of the One Wedding and a Funeral, let's talk about that. For Jim, I guess you get this script and there's a lot of moving parts in something like this. What is your thoughts on getting that script and seeing this murder scene and this party and a wedding? I mean, they really threw everything at you at one time, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a very, very interesting company. Those guys, they're a bunch of kids. I had a few opportunities over the years to work with, I worked with the 21 Jump Street guys. I worked with the 90210 guys. I ended up working with the Dawson's Creek guys. I got to work with a lot of young actors starting their careers. And it was a very good thing to be able to do, to open up an environment where they were safe and they could explore and they could do their thing. They could be free. And this group they were all pissed off. I mean, the first thing an actor does is pray for a job, and then as soon as he gets it, he says, "What the hell am I doing this crap for? I should be doing something better." But the reality is, those guys they really had stepped into a gold mine there. I mean, I remember when I started working on that show, there were paparazzi guys across the street on Calvert Street hiding in the sauna store, taking pictures with long lenses of all these kids. I mean, they were like the Beatles. They were on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, Luke and Jason, those guys.
Yeah.
So on one hand, they hated it, but Luke was an actor.
Right.
He was an actor. He loved to act, and and this was what a great story to tell. I mean, to fall in love with, when I got to that show with these two guys, they were so in sync, Rebecca and Luke, that it was real. There was a wonderful, real thing going on to photograph, and it was going to break everybody's heart. And then they did. They let me go out to Malibu and shoot at a beautiful mansion on the beach. I mean, it was one thing after another. Stanley Campbell, old friend of mine, one of the great actors that lived in Hollywood, and sad to say he died, very, very young, but what a wonderful actor. And you say he was a great bad guy. He was a wonderful actor. He could do anything, that guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were so many elements that were wonderful in that. Rick Gunter, the cameraman, was so game on that one. We got the long lenses going. We got out in that cemetery and we shot such beautiful stuff at the funeral. I mean, when I watched the show the other day, when it started, I went, what in the hell is going on here? I didn't remember. And then as I started getting into it, I remember it very vividly. I remember these two guys working together. I remember, all the stuff in the house and Luke and Rebecca and how they worked. And by the way, Rebecca, your work was extraordinary. And you may have been a model, but you were a brilliant, wonderful, natural actress. And I remember not working with you, but coming on a show soon after that, Dead Like Me, that you did the pilot for? Another wonderful TV show that we worked on. It was just a bunch of people who really cared. And I think you're right, Larry.
That was a great one.
The material was so compelling to these guys. It was really something to do other than, like do the twist and comb your hair. They were actually alive in this story, and it was quite beautiful. And for me, it was a thrill. I'm a journeyman director. I go around and shoot films for guys, and a lot of it is just it's pap. That show had some extraordinary currents of reality and passion and love, and it was a joy to do. I mean, it's a love story. Who the hell doesn't want to make a love story? A tragic love story. It was a gift. It was a gift to do. I was happy.
Rebecca, for you, what was it like working with Stanley? We just talked about him a little bit. Rebecca?
I agree. He was such a wonderful actor, and yes, and he was such a he was a wonderful person. I loved hanging out with him. We had so many great conversations, and he was so supportive of me. He would sort of critique my work for me. You know, I ask him to keep an eye out. And so he was giving me lots of positive, reinforcement. And it was great. I mean, he was a lovely guy. Gone too soon, for sure. You know, I felt it was just such a great experience because of Stanley and Luke and Cliff and the crew, and it was really special. It was.
How about for you, Cliff, working with Stanley?
Again, I was really new to LA, and Stanley was a veteran actor, and so I would talk to him a lot about career. I would talk to him a little bit about acting. So, you know, he was a bit of a mentor, certainly in our scenes together. And I remember one time in particular, I was, working on having some emotion, and Stanley was watching me and sort of helping me to sort of modulate that. So he was very helpful.
That's good to hear.
Larry, I wanted to say one thing before you asked me. I was thinking when James was talking, I think, and also Rebecca, I think one of the things also was special about this storyline is all the actors who loved Luke themselves wanted his getaway to be as great as it could make it. So everyone bought into this story, and everyone played it hard.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And, some of that is evident. I mean, like, this is one of those things where we've seen people leave the show later on, but everybody is still pretty present in this. We have everybody at the wedding. All the main characters are there. The core that was there outside of Gabrielle is there for this, for the participation of this wedding. This is where I would ask Molly Campbell, by the way, about the beautiful dress and whatnot.
Oh, I know.
But I don't know where she is. But
the other thing we did was,
do you guys remember?
Go ahead.
Do you guys remember the day we shot the wedding? There was a very funny photo that was taken by the helicopter paparazzi.
That's right.
The whole cast is there, and the crew, and we all just stand there and look up and give them a hug. It was very funny.
Yeah. That was a great one. Yeah. They really were bothering everybody. Yeah, that show. Yeah. Well, obviously, that was the highest. I think it was the highest single-rated episode as it came out. There was such anticipation for it, and it delivered, which is always a wonderful thing. I wanted to say one thing to you, Jim. I don't know if you knew, but Rick Gunther also died.
Oh, I know, bro. I know very well. He was a great guy. What a pleasure to work with. When we went down to Mexico together, I told him some of the stories about some of my adventures in Mexico, and his face, he got very, very quiet. He didn't know what the hell to say about me.
Jim, were you on the location scout when we did the hazardous tier? You must have been on. We almost went down in Duke's plane.
We did what?
Remember, we had an incident in an airplane in Duke Vincent's plane. We were flying down to Cabo.
Yes,
Cabo ship.
Yeah, Duke.
Yes. Yeah.
Down
We almost
that
went there. That was bad.
Cabo, where Duke hung out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Rebecca, let's talk about the wedding scene itself. What do you remember about shooting the wedding?
What do I remember?
For Rebecca.
Rebecca, yeah, that's the one to talk to.
Well, I remember that we were sort of writing our own vows to one another. Do you remember that? There was a script that was given to us, and then I think Luke was like, okay, we have this, but let's also write our own vows to each other. And I can't really recall what was used in the show, if it was what was written or what we sort of said to each other. And that was kind of frightening to do. But
I think Steve was on the set that day.
It was just such a bigger than life day, that was, and I don't know, I have nothing but fond memories of shooting the wedding.
Yeah, for Larry, as a wedding is a big deal, right? It's a big.
Well, you're trying to have more than one a season. You're trying to have one a season because you want to have a death and a wedding. We're shooting all our bullets in one episode, really. Because we had 32 to do, as Jim and everybody knows. The other thing I'd forgotten watching this thing too, we should really give the cat was fantastic, and And I'll tell you something. Watching that scene after the unmentionable time, and when the cat finally comes in and stuff, and I remember when we were going through the beats and writing the story here, and we were all crying in the room, so we kind of felt we had everybody. But Luke, I mean, what he does in that scene and what Jim captures and what he got from him there. Well, I mean, I literally cried 3 times during the show, and I hadn't seen it in 25 years, but.
Well, let's talk about this. We're going to have to all get through this together, this scene. Oh my God. Stop. God. We got through it. She's here. She's okay. Rebecca, what do you remember about shooting all of that?
Alive. Oh, gosh, it was just a lot. And, for Luke, it was such a big thing. It was such a big scene for Luke that I think we all tried to just give him his to do his thing and go there. And listen, there was rain in the car, and the music that was used in that scene was great.
Yeah.
I remember it very vividly. And I remember Jason being there and we all just sort of stood back and let Luke sort of do what he needed to do, because that was, I think what was needed, for that scene. But it was really emotional. It was really sad. I mean, I don't know how you watch that and not sort of feel emotions.
God.
What do you guys remember from that night?
I can't get through it. Hey, Jim, for you, though, that's a pretty heavy scene. Luke has got a lot to do there. What is your memory of that?
What happened?
What is your memory of that scene?
Well, it wasn't a thing that they did with Spelling did all the time. It wasn't like, I worked, Paul Wagner was the producer on that show, and I'd say, Paul, what about a little fire? And you said, no. What about a little rain? No. You can't. You couldn't do anything on the show. So now we had rain, we had car gags, we had machine gun fire and squibs. I mean, this is pretty unusual stuff for Beverly Hills 90210. So it was sort of stressful, but it was so much fun to shoot because all the actors wanted to do it. Everybody wanted to be involved. And the camera, if you notice the high shot, we really didn't know how to do a high shot, a crane shot in the rain, because the rain's dripping off the matte box, and we didn't have a deflector. We just didn't. Those guys weren't doing that kind of stuff, but they went for it, and I think it's very powerful. It's beautifully done. And Luke just wanted to go. He wanted to go. He wanted to act. He wanted to tell this story. He was an artist. He really, really wanted to act. He wanted to sing, and he went for it in that show. He was beautiful. He was a great guy. Luke Perry was a hell of a guy.
Yeah, he was. One thing I remember is they kept telling me to I had my hood on so that you couldn't see my entire face. And I had to keep pulling the hood, to hide my face. So it would make sense that the mistake was made. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
That was.
Yeah, they had to think it was Luke.
The rain and everything helped with that. People bought it. No problem.
Yeah.
Larry, you wrote the rain into this, obviously.
Yeah, well, because again, we were trying to help, confuse the gunman as much. You have to make it look real. I mean, so all that stuff was helpful. And again, Paul Wagner did come. We started getting bigger and bigger in the show as Jim knows. You remember you acted also in the Western that Jason directed. that those guys also twisted your arm to be in, and you add so much authenticity to it. It really. We actually had a show with Jason, and we talked about that. We talked about talking you into the show. But that was, we wanted to make the show big. Again, we all felt this great responsibility to send that character off. And when he rides down that road with the little cat there, Trouble. And, it's just, we were obviously hoping he'd come back down the road the other way, but he didn't for a long time.
Cliff, for you, you play a pivotal part in the phone call, right? You get the call, and you think that Stanley's character is having a change of heart. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on some of the things that you had to do in those scenes? Because I think the way you delivered that, I think it brings that anticipation of, oh God, I hope nothing is going to happen here, leading up to it. So, what's your thoughts on those scenes?
I basically was just doing my job. I know that sounds like a strange thing, but I felt like I had to serve the plot as best I could. And so I thought, as far as my acting was concerned, I went back. I hadn't seen it in 20 years or so. I was like, wow, that's really clean and really, it just communicated, the conflict within the character and that he was very concerned for Antonia, and he had to do something and felt powerless.
Well, he risked everything. Also, he basically risks everything by doing it. He could be killed himself.
Yeah. So, I remember again, particularly talking to the first AD about how to do the shot and so forth, and it was all relatively new to me. And I remember that particular scene. I was asking about my shot and how we were going to do it and so forth. So it was a learning curve, but nonetheless, I just felt like I was just doing my job. I had to, hit the notes.
In 2020, Bruno just shoots her a text. Hey, your dad.
Right.
Oh yeah, we're saved by that. Yeah.
He said, "How did Bruno know the Peach Pit number?" Which was something that people have commented on.
The yellow pages, the yellow 411. Pages.
Yeah,
411.
Hey, your dad is about to try to kill your boyfriend, your new husband. Watch out!
OMG,
Bruno. Right?
No, I mean that made everything harder once cell phones happened, and storytelling and this cop stuff was a lot harder.
Yeah. I think one of the other most beautiful scenes in this episode, prior to the what we just watched, is there's that really beautiful scene that Rebecca, you have with Luke. I guess the wedding night, right? You guys have that beautiful dance and very powerful scene. Do you remember doing
music in that show? You guys had great music in that show.
That was Lyle Lovett's "Nobody Knows Me But My Baby," and that was the second choice we had for the show. The first choice was Chris Isaak, "Somebody's Crying," and we couldn't license it, so we went with the other one, and it's so perfect. It's great.
It's actually better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, it works so great, and the dance is beautiful. And Jim, I want to commend you. You didn't use too many candles.
But Rebecca,
everyone knows I have a thing about candles and directors. I make fun of it all the time, but you use just the proper amount of candles, I find.
Do you remember doing that scene, the little dance there before after the wedding and all that?
Yeah, of course. I remember him carrying me in. We tried to just keep it as real as possible and tender, and again, just tell the story. But listen, it was obvious Luke and I had really easy, great chemistry. So those scenes were fairly easy for us, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely comes through. And then obviously, we get the funeral aspect of this, which you're not in, Rebecca. No. But what do you recall about shooting the funeral, Jim?
Well, I like I say, we were at a beautiful, lovely spot. Cemeteries are often very, very lovely places to shoot because of all the dapple light and the trees and stuff. And we had all these. Another thing about that show, Larry, is that you had some beautiful human beings in that show. I mean, those faces were just extraordinary, and they were all quite powerful. Jenny Garth at that point had become a European actress. I mean, she was so full, and there was so much going on in her, and they were all the same way. And we got back with nice long lenses, which we didn't do a lot of with spelling. It wasn't what we did in those days. Getting back nice long lenses and softening the frame, and they were, and Luke was so there, and Stanley was so there. I mean, there was such a gravitas about what everybody was doing. You just put the lens on them and play some bitchin' music, and it was fantastic. I mean, it really worked. And I watched it the other night. That was 30 years ago. I can't remember anything about it until I'm watching it, and I'm crying too, like a schmuck. It was wonderful, And what I remember is that everybody was doing it, brother. I mean, they were there. You could do a 90210 and have a lot of guys saying, "Hey, when are we going to get out of here? I got to go to the golf course or something." And that was not one of those shows. That they were never doing that. They wanted to be there, and they wanted to full. And I think you're right, Larry. They want to say adios to Luke.
Exactly. Yeah, that was definitely it. Because after he left, there was a big slump. Actually, not a slump, but just we had to pick it up again and stuff there. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's tough to keep a bunch of guys interested, man.
Do you
I
remember?
wanted to say, the day that we shot the funeral scene, I went into the makeup trailer and Luke was there. And usually he and I would share some banter. We'd talk, and I could see he was already in the moment. He was already preparing for what was coming up. And I was like, wow, it was really, really amazing. And so I think he inspired everybody around him. But I just remember very distinctly that morning, just looking over at him and seeing him. And he was just preparing himself for the day. It was pretty cool.
I mean, it's been amazing for us. We've had a lot of guest stars. We've done like 30 shows, and everyone has a similar story. Like when I came on the set, it was intimidating. There's a little bit of a mean girl factor, and the kids at school, and you're not in it. And Luke was the guy who would take a moment and says, "Hey, don't let the bitches get to you. Don't let this happen." And he would take him in. He's just it sucks.
Yeah, for Rebecca, I'm curious. You said that before we came on, you said that you got to see him in a movie that you were in recently.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well.
So, what are your memories of Luke, the storyline, and having seen him again?
Listen, we stayed in touch over the years. He came to see my Broadway performance when he was in New York. I would visit him, and we definitely had a friendship, and we stayed in touch throughout the years. But it had been about a year since I'd seen him, and then we got to see each other one last time. It was during we crossed paths at a wardrobe fitting because, like I said, we had no scenes together in the movie, and I'm in the movie very little. So it was, I think meant to be that I got to see him one last time before his passing. And, it was the same. It was the same Luke, the same amazing, loving, kind, funny, crazy Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of nice things about him through here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pete, I was thinking, this in some part of the storytelling too, I don't want to leave out is, how the marriage of Luke to Tony was going to affect everyone else, namely the Jenny Garth character, Kelly Taylor, because we start the picture off with that, and she's okay with it, and she seemed genuine in her scenes with Rebecca, and the girls really embraced him, and I think again, even the character's love of Dylan was translated. It was all the same thing, and the only one, and I saw a comment before, and I wasn't quite sure why we did this, but Valerie does not go to the bachelorette party.
Right. And
I think in the thinking in the time was that she was the only one who really, couldn't get behind it because she still loved Dylan herself. In fact, that's the only thing I could think of. If it wasn't double ups, then there had to be a real reason that she just couldn't. It was a bridge too far for her to see that Dylan was going to marry someone else. The other thing we did, which we were very good at, we gave life to the Brenda character off screen. There's a telegram from Brenda. We kept throwing that rope out there. It's going to happen eventually if we keep throwing it out there. I was very proud we did that because, again, it honors the fans who who love these characters as much as we do, and so you get like an equity of if you watch the show a long time, you get to appreciate things more.
Yeah.
Did you get to work much with Tiffany, Rebecca?
No, I did not. And she's, I think I had a couple of crossover scenes with her, maybe 2.
Right.
At most, but not many. Did she come to the house party, the little get together that Tony had? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No, there wasn't much crossover there.
No.
I think maybe there was maybe 2 short scenes or something. I know I worked with her and that we shot together, but I think it was very little.
And but who of the girls were there any? Was Kathleen great with you? Were some of them good with you? Tell me about some of them.
Yeah, I mean, Kathleen was lovely from day one. She was very welcoming, and Tori ended up being lovely. I have to say, she did. I think it took some of the other girls a little longer, but you're right. By the end of my stint there, everyone was really great. I think it took some getting used to have a new girl in the hair and makeup trailer, a new girl on set, a new girl working with Dylan, Luke, who
Right.
I think they all sort of were vying for his energy, attention, whatever it is. There was definitely energy there that you had to work with. And, there was a couple of days that were rough, but I think after that, everyone was like, "Oh, okay, she's fine. We accept her."
Yeah.
I don't know what I did to get accepted, but they were okay by the end.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Larry, we see Dylan, drive off, and that's the end of that character. Was that tough for you all, the writers?
Terrible. It's just, because that was, first of all, he's a great fun character to write for, because he also, we were doing a college show. It was something that occurred to me, and Jim knows because we shot at colleges. There are no college shows. We're the only college show that was ever successful, as far as I could tell. Watching these shows now, I said, it's a college show. Mm-hmm. But Luke's character, Dylan McKay, was not going to go to college. So we always had that, we were in the junior year because we tried to keep everything, real, like kids, when it was September, it was always September and likewise. So, it was always a problem, but it was never really a problem because we loved writing for him and he was challenging. And also it gave us a chance in the last year or two to kind of run a little bit more of an action plot. We kind of really were able to work on some of his demons and, we got him addicted to drugs. We got him losing his money and running to, so he was an action character for us. I mean, in a lot of ways. And so we lost that. No, there was really no one to replace that after he left. We never really got that. So, I mean, when I left after season 7, there was still hope that eventually that he might come back. But if he didn't, it was perfect the way he left, everyone felt. And, I remember that I ran into the president of NBC at the time, which was a competing network. And he shook my hand and said, "That was an amazing episode you did. That story, I must have had young kids." Because usually, and I don't know if Rebecca or Jim or Cliff had this, but, I tell this story occasionally, but, after 90210 for me, I would go for a job interview and people go, what have you been doing? I said, well, I've been executive producing 90210, writing, producing. You go, oh, it's too bad it wasn't a good show.
Nice.
And with the spelling, we had this curse of spelling on us that it was somehow, they never watched the show, obviously, because, we were doing some shit,
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the curse of that.
I think
we all made money. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, I don't know.
We got paid.
We're all here on the show, on this podcast talking about this stuff from 30 years ago because of how incredible everything was. So a lot of people didn't get it right that you talked to.
Nothing is despised more than success in Hollywood.
Exactly. And also, how can I succeed if my friends don't fail?
Lily's been, scouring some fan questions and whatnot. What do you have for Rebecca, Cliff, Jim, Larry?
So I'll start with one for Rebecca. One of our viewers, Mary B, would like to know. She says that your chemistry with Luke was beyond convincing. I felt so happy for his character to find new love. Did you and Luke practice a lot off screen, or did it all just come together naturally?
That's funny. Well, listen, we did hang out a lot off screen, and that probably helped our performance.
There we go. Okay.
Well, one of our favorite viewers, Lori, wants to know if you had a crush on anyone in the cast at any point.
Did I?
Yes.
I definitely had a crush on Luke.
Right.
Definitely. I mean, listen, I was, I had a boyfriend and he was married, but of course I had a crush on him.
Yes. Awesome. Melinda Berg asks if you knew how to ride a motorcycle the way you did on the show, or do you now?
Me? The motorcycle? Oh, God. I do not. Okay. That scene's actually quite funny to watch because I cannot ride a motorcycle like that. And I wish I could. I look so cool.
Yeah.
Riding a motorcycle like that. My double made me look so cool.
Thank God for helmets.
Yeah.
So Chance Bartels wants to know, he asked me to please ask Rebecca to tell a story of working with Luke after 90210 in the miniseries Invasion.
So, yes. So, Luke and I tried to work together as much as possible after 90210, and we did a couple jobs, and Invasion was one of them. And, again, we we really had fun working together. We had a really lovely friendship. And, you know, we both loved acting. We loved telling these stories, and we had a great time hanging out. So Invasion was the same. You know, we were just a few years older and had a little bit more experience under our belt, but we still had just as much fun on Invasion as we did on 90210. But 90210 is special because that's where it all started.
Totally. Zara Brown wants to know if you received any fan letters during your time on the show, and do you have any fun memories on the set? And are you willing to share some?
Yes, I received lots of fan mail because of this character. Lots of people inquiring about the wedding dress, about Trouble the cat, about you know, what it was like to kiss Luke. So many things that these people want to know about Luke. Lots of questions about Luke, obviously. You know, I'm trying to think of stories on set. Really what stands out when I think about shooting 90210 was, you know, just I woke up every morning very excited to go to work because, you know, like Jim was saying, everyone was so invested. And I guess because it was Luke's departure storyline and people really wanted to show up for that. But also there was just a great camaraderie. It was really fun days, you know, some long, hard days of shooting, but no one complained because it was so great shooting. You know, everyone was really there, really into it.
Awesome.
Jess S says, was happy about this storyline. Perfect match for Dylan.
So I have a couple more for Rebecca and then a few for the writers. Rebecca, Val Marin would like to know if you would have stood up to your father in the name of love despite the dangerous circumstances that it held.
Hell yeah.
All right. And one that came up quite a bit was, how did you prepare yourself as an actress for, you know, such a sad fate as for your that your character had?
Well, I don't know. I think you know, the story. We played that story through. We told that story with a nice through line. So, you know, I think Luke had the hard part when I died. You know, so but it was the rest of it was very easy. It was very easy to. I think play the dynamic between Stanley and Luke, and the love story with Luke was, you know, right there and very easy to do. But I don't know how much prep I did. I feel like it just sort of all the magic happened when we got there. If that makes any sense.
For Larry, you know, another thing we should talk about in this is the performances between Jason and Luke. We have a lot of really beautiful stuff because his best friend, probably off screen as well, is leaving the cast and he's going to stay. What are your thoughts on seeing some of that stuff all these years later?
Well, I was really struck by, of course, because I listened to the words, but, you know, I remember, you know, the writing, you know, with Steve, the look what they did to her, but he goes, Brandon, like he brings Brandon right into that thing. Of course, Brandon's the star of our series, so of course he does. But I was happy at that, but at the same time, I was kind of shocked at it. But it all works. And I mean, look, I mean, the goodbye with the thing with the guys was really emotional that day. I mean, Jim knows he shot it with him. Hey, Jim, was it the last thing you shot of that episode? I wonder now. Was Luke driving off the last?
I don't remember that.
Probably not. Probably we're on the set. Probably
not there with him on the motorcycle. I remember it very well, but I don't know if it was the last day. I don't.
Yeah,
know.
It probably was. It would have been on the set. Probably. We would have gone back to the set probably. But I mean, you know, there's a real bromance between those guys there. And we had really, you know, played that. And we wanted to really focus on that at the end. That's why we contrived this thing where Bruno's going to call the peach pit and Brandon's going to take Luke over there. I mean, you know, we had to vertically integrate the story, which is, you know, part of the challenge of writing these things. And it's like a puzzle you're trying to put together.
Even the scene with Brandon and Luke or Dylan when they're playing cards.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he tells him he's, you know, is his best friend and all that stuff. I mean, you guys really sort of pulled on our heartstrings, not even just with, you know, what's going to happen with Tony, but in saying goodbye to that character. He does get an opportunity to say goodbye to everyone, essentially. You know, even
I felt great about that. And I forgot that Rebecca got to smoke cigars too at the bachelorette party.
That's right. We did.
And that was kind of cute. You know, just,
yeah.
You know, yeah, those guys, I guess, you know, they did their job.
There's that, yes.
Yes, that's right. The only thing that really jarred me in this episode, and I can't remember for the life of me what happened, but we have Ray Pruitt show up in the episode, right? I mean, or did I dream that? Does Ray Pruitt show up at the beach house at one point and try to talk to Donna?
He does.
I have no. I guess we had him on contract because he was already gone by that point. I thought. I mean,
yes. Jamie Walters shows up and he's angry.
Jamie Walters character.
Yeah. I can't remember why we needed to have that.
Larry, I think that was one of those shows too that was like 25 minutes over, and you guys had to freeze Brian down.
There was more story. There was more story there. Yeah, that makes sense, Jim. Yeah, I would think so. Steve Wasserman. Actually, I have to read something from Jessica. I might as well do it now.
Yeah.
Let me just because Jessica Klein, who was of course executive producer with Steve, and myself for these episodes. Steve is no longer with us, and Jessica couldn't come tonight, so she wanted me to read this, and I will. This episode was Steve Wasserman's proudest moment. It demonstrates not only his talent as a writer, but also as a producer. And Steve loved working on 90210. He would be so touched and honored to know that the fans are still watching the show so many years later. Our daughter Shira joins me in wishing all those who celebrate a happy, healthy, and sweet new year.
Yeah.
Love you, Jess.
Yeah, Jessica normally would be with us, but
we all miss Steve, who, again, this was an episode, again, 3 of the principals in it are gone. I mean, it's shocking.
And Jess says watching Luke right off at the end is even sadder now. Yeah. So, James, you said that you remember shooting the drive off, the send off scene. What are your memories of that?
Oh my! It was 2 guys working. 2 guys. The guys were wonderful. They loved each other. Yeah. We were out in that great location out in Pasadena, where the house was out there, where Luke's place was.
Altadena, yeah.
And once again, we were losing. I'm just talking technical here. We were using long lenses, so that great shot of him driving away on the bike was it was a focus pull that lasted for quite a long time. Big old bitching close up of Luke, and they were very simple actors. Those guys, the less was more with them, but they were both so full. They didn't have to do a lot. There was and the audience was so invested in their relationship. The audience was so connected that they were imagining a million different things as well. The guys were good guys to work with. I loved those guys. They were good guys, Yeah. And they were doing their job. They loved it. They honored that moment as actors.
For sure. Rebecca, what about working with Jason for you? You did some stuff with him.
Yeah, he was great. He was a hoot. He was also one of the people who made me feel very comfortable when I first arrived on the show. But, listen, those 2, they had a really great friendship on the screen and off the screen. So that was really fun to watch, and it was really endearing and special. And, it was a great set, for me to be on, just to see all that. I'd never been on a show for more than a few episodes. So to see these people who'd worked together for so many years and really had these deep friendships and connections and all this history and had gone through so much together, it was lovely to watch. Jason was great.
Larry, some fan fiction here. If Luke Perry said, I'm going to stay on for the season. Say this we get a contract, right?
22 more episodes, 32 episodes for that season.
I'm doing it. What happens with Dylan? Is it still with Tony?
Yes. But then she dies at the 32nd episode. Sorry, but I mean, again, the long game was always going to be Kelly. It was going to be Brenda, frankly, originally, but we were still going to work in the triangle with Brandon and Dylan over Kelly once we lost Brenda for Dylan. But we still were hopeful that Shannon was going to come back. I mean, what we might have done, though, I shouldn't say that, but we would have had to deal with her father and stuff. I mean, somehow, because I think it's really good the way we end this episode. The killing is over, so theoretically that's, neutralized or whatever. That's done. She would have had to have probably gone out with Brandon, I guess. I mean, probably would have been Brandon and Tony, because again, we vertically integrated our characters. They all wound up being, with each other for a lot of times, unfortunately.
So there's no version of this story where they live.
Incestuous little group.
There's no version of this story where they live happily ever after.
No, there are no married couples on the show in a show like this. At least in my world, or that or else you're going to challenge them. Well, yeah, they marry, but then they're being a affair. Luke, would have been a. Men are very immature. Let's face it. For a long time, men are very immature, as we all know. Jim, back me up here. Cliff.
No comment.
Anyway, so probably Dylan would have just been in a situation and it would have been bad, and his marriage would have been over. So we would have, what we would normally do. We put an obstacle in between them, split them up, and then maybe work them back again.
Bring them back together.
It's just working the puzzle.
I got you. Well,
I'm glad I died.
It's so memorable. Like you said, it was so impactful. I think you did the whole show. I mean, it's amazing. It was 8 episodes, but it's so precious when you see it now.
I always bring up the point that for the Brenda Dylan fans, which I am I'm Switzerland, whatever that is. I love all of the couples together, but if Brenda doesn't leave, do we ever see this Tony? Dylan storyline, and I don't, because
probably not. No, that came out of necessity. We knew we had to get rid of him, and we had the leftover storyline with that we had inherited with the father being killed and who killed his father. We could use that to drive a romantic story.
Yeah, and so for me, the Tony and Dylan storyline is probably the most powerful of the storylines that come to 90210. So
I know. Season 6 is a hell of a season. As we were discovering, but watching a lot of season 6, it's pretty amazing. And it was, at the time, everyone said, "Oh, the show's going down. Luke's leaving. This has happened."
Yeah.
Anyway, and again, you can't do a college show. That's what everyone told us. You can't do a college show, which it's interesting. No one's done a college show.
Lily, I'll let you do a couple of more, and then we're going to wrap this one up.
Yep, I have a few more. So actually for Cliff, you've actually been receiving a lot of love from our viewers. I was just taking a look at the comments here, and everyone is so happy to see you. One of the questions that came up was, were you ever recognized or approached by any fans for your character, Bruno?
I still to this day am recognized. But oftentimes people don't quite know how they know me. But for the longest time, I went to the theater once and literally the audience parted ways. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, there's the guy from 90210." I got recognized quite a bit and still do. But nowadays it's more like, I know you from somewhere. So I always say I'm an actor. And ultimately it comes down to Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah. Dylan.
So this one may actually be for Larry and maybe Jim. Chance Bartels asks if the episode One Wedding and a Funeral was inspired by the James Bond 007 movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service. In that 1968 film, 007 married a woman and she was shot up by thugs. He also says that both that movie and 90210 are exactly alike and are each dramatic to the max. The late Stanley Camel was inspired as Antonio's father. Director James Whitmore's father of the same name was an acclaimed character actor. Any connection?
Not that I know of. Other than I remember seeing that movie, maybe in the back of my head I was there.
Be careful there.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, we'll get to.
Okay, 2 more.
No, I don't think. Yeah. No, I already said we stole from Shakespeare, so now James Bond. What the heck,
Larry, you mentioned the cat earlier. So, what was the story behind the cat trouble? Was it anyone's pet? Did anyone get to take it home?
Well, funny you should ask. This was a kind of a, like a lot of times we draw on our experiences as people. I was in love with a girl who drove a motorcycle and had a cat in her, what was called then a knapsack. That's how long ago it was. It was a knapsack that she traveled with. And it was St. John's of Annapolis. I was leaving Georgetown School of Foreign Service, and I was following this girl, and she had a cat named Trouble. And it turned out to be trouble for me because the relationship did not work out. But I always stored it in the back of my head. And again, we were looking for stuff to do for the kids in the house, for once Tony moved in with Dylan, and the cat thing just became something, and then again, we realized, we can use it for that great moment to do the switch where Dylan's going to stay look for the cat and she's going to be in the car. And so the cat became so useful. And then, we just kind of went with the cat. I mean, I love animals myself. And this cat really did well because she acts by doing nothing with Luke, who's crying over the cat after the death. And
Yes.
when the cat finally comes back in, we knew that was going to be a killer moment. And they just delivered it so beautifully.
Yeah. Rebecca, did you get any, what did you think of the cat? Someone's asking here if you got to keep the cat, Alex?
I did not get to keep the cat, but I was really fond of that little cat. It was a sweet little cat, and I loved shooting with it. And again, I also love animals, so that was kind of a treat. It was really fun.
Yes, there we go. Okay, one more, Lily, and we're out of here.
It's a good one. Larry, Val Marin brings up, in Dylan's vows to Tony, he says that all of his life, people told him he was running away from something, but then found her. Sadly, after Tony's death, he's forced to run away again. This time he goes to Brenda. Was this just a coincidence? Of course, the Brillin fan in me always wished it was because he really loved her too, after the telegram she sent him for his wedding. And I'd like to add in there, why couldn't Dylan tell Brenda? He tells Brandon, I don't think I could have told her. Why?
Oh, God. Here we go. This Brenda's.
Well, okay. So the first one was when we didn't really think about Dylan going to London at that point. When he's driving off to, start a new life. And, again, we always imagined Dylan somewhat of a writer. Like he's storing all this stuff up because eventually he's going to write something. So, he's just going out to have some experiences. And we brought in the London thing a little bit later. It seemed a way to kind of keep working the Brenda thing with Dylan, to have him say, I can't tell her. It's just a great way to show emotion. I mean, so it was a way to show that there was a little bit still something there. And again, to keep those fans like yourself going at this possibility. So, I mean, we knew, even without social media, when people would write letters to us, we knew that people watched the show and really were invested in these stuff. So, and that fed us. It fed us because we realized that early on they knew the show sometimes better than us. So we were following them sometimes. But we just tried to keep everything alive.
Lastly, I'm going to ask Rebecca, do you look back, and I'm going to ask all you guys this, you look back on this episode now recently, 30 years later, what do you think? Does it still hold up? How do you feel about it?
You know what? I think it does. I mean, I really think it does. And I think, 30 years later, I still have people confessing to me, that they watched the show. It was like their dirty little secret, and they know more about the show than I did. You know what I mean? So I think it does hold up, and there's a whole new generation of people watching it. So I think that is the telltale sign of great television.
Yeah. How about you, James? You just watched it back. What do you think?
Do I think it holds up?
Yeah.
I do. I was moved by it, brother. The beginning, I was kind of, that scene in the dress shop, I'm kind of going, what is this stuff? But then it started to flow, it started to roll, and it was very moving to me. I loved the wedding. I loved you guys together in the house. I loved you guys together, on your wedding night. There was brilliant stuff in the dancing, the songs, and of course the ending, just when Luke takes that little kitty cat in his hands and started to weep. You can't beat it, brother. That's melody. Yeah.
How about you, Cliff?
In preparation for this, I was watching my episodes with my son, who's 24, and he had never seen the show. And we started watching it, and he was like, I want to watch this show.
Yay.
So I think it holds up. I watched that final episode. I started weeping. I just thought Luke was just fantastic. And just, my heart broke. So I think it holds up.
And I think, what we know about losing Luke all these years later, I think it even gives it when you watch it now, it gives it even another piece to the puzzle here. Hey, I'm all about gratitude these days, guys. James, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for directing this episode. I mean, it really drew us in, and we still talk about it, but there's so much beauty in what you did all those years ago on this, and we're just so thankful for it. And Cliff, as Bruno, you were the fans, you were us. We were rooting for this to get stopped and for Tony not to die. So it's just beautiful work that you did all the way through, and we're just so thankful that you came by. And Rebecca, what can I say? I mean, this is the only episode of 90210 I can't watch because I get so emotional, but I think it speaks to your honesty and what you bring out of the character. You know, it was very easy for all of us to fall in love with Tony, the character. I think it speaks to your work and probably who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. We really appreciate it. Cool, guys. All right, so thank you so much. We will check you next week. Larry, which 2 episodes are we talking about on Wednesday with Chuck?
We're discussing Meet Mr. Pony.
Right.
And Pig is a Boy is a Dog, which I wrote. It's an animal rights episode. And then we have I've never seen Meet Mr. Pony, so I'll be watching that for the first time.
So 2 really big Brenda episodes. But
exactly. It's a Brenda-centric show. It's showing her side, both 2 sides of Brenda. And then the other thing we should, again, this October 4th Super Show, which hopefully Jim, Cliff, and Rebecca will just give a happy anniversary to. Actually, maybe they should say happy anniversary now. Actually, just so we can have it on tape in case we don't get them.
Right.
But yeah, we're gonna party the 30-year anniversary, and just kind of do it just because it's become a pandemic pastime. So we had nothing else to do, but it's been very gratifying. Just to see your faces, it's so wonderful.
Yes, and I love it.
Love you all.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank